podcast. Andy?
We are back to talk about podcasts.
We are talking
a podcast about podcasting.
Last time, if you remember, eagle-eared listeners will remember, we talked about the Googleplosion and changing podcast directories. And this week we're taking on, Andy, another hot topic in the world. And that is our negotiating with our coming robot overlords. AI and how we're using it.
Is that what this
podcasting.
is?
That's what this is. We all know we're
I better think more about my Midjourney prompts if they're already judging me.
Absolutely, you should be thinking about that because you are being judged. You're being trained upon, and this is just a precursor to you being trained. So we're talking about AI and how we use it in podcasting and our work at True Story. And it seems like we should probably start with a bit of conversation about the current state of the public impression of AI, the benefits and, dare I say, concerns.
And it fluctuates constantly because, rightfully so, I think a lot of people have concerns about how AI can be manipulated by people with ill intent, particularly in the realm of politics and news and what sort of fake news creations are perhaps going to be put out there, what sort of misinformation will be abused in our world. And also, there's the whole conversation about people who are creatives and who are creating things that are then getting pulled into the AI system to be integrated into its learning language to create its own things that are ideally intended to be its own unique thing. But, as people feel, sometimes it seems like, this seems awfully like Stephen King when I read this, or this looks like this artist. And that's, I think, a lot of the sorts of concerns that we're getting with it.
Well, and for a while, and I've tested this, you can't do this anymore. So this is when Andy says things are changing rapidly. This is an example.
Oh, yeah.
For a while, you could copy and paste the first paragraph to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and say what comes next. And because it's essentially a glorified autocomplete, right? I'm saying that super dismissively, and I shouldn't, but a glorified autocomplete. It'll tell you what comes next because it knows what comes next after those specific words. Well, now there is a response that says, "Hey, we're not going to tell you what comes next. We know you're trying to play us," says the robot. That's not really what it says, but it does say this is copyright material. We detect that you're talking about Harry Potter, and you can't do that. We're not going to tell you what comes next. But that does bring to the fore this whole idea of styles, because just because I can't get one of these models to output word for word, chapter and verse any of the books of Harry Potter anymore, I can say, please give me a paragraph of this story in the style of J.K. Rowling, or in the style of one of the Harry Potter universe novels. And that's concerning for a lot of people. It's concerning for me, as a creator, to imagine that styles can be so easily, duplicated, replicated, and so quickly. And that's a real challenge. So we start this conversation with a bit of a caveat that says, we know it's problematic. And we know that the world is changing really, really fast at work and in creation. And yet, I think, I hope you agree, I think, Andy, we've come up with a real balanced approach to how these tools save us time and allow us to do things that we were not doing before.
Well, and I think that's, the big benefit with AI is finding ways to, take shortcuts and things that, once took longer, you can do in a much more streamlined way. And that, especially in the realm of podcasting, where, just creating the actual episode itself is one part of it, right? You have to create the episode, and then there are the show notes that you write and the show art and titling. And there are all these different tools that you are putting together in order to actually release it to the public and make sure that it gets found and heard and interacted with. et cetera, et cetera. And that's where we really start finding a lot of benefit in the way that AI is used as a tool by people in a space like ours, as opposed to just something where people are maliciously using it in ways for ill-gotten gain.
Well, and I would hang a flag on this particular point you just made. Like, our core business is creating podcasts. It's creating conversations between human beings on microphones and releasing those things into the world. We could strip down all the other things we do, right? Transcripts, we could strip down show notes and graphics and all that stuff and go to a very basic website that just has the episodes that we create, and that would represent the core of our business. Everything else is designed for findability, right? To allow us to create the words and titles and tools that allow others to find the website in a very noisy online marketplace of ideas. But and those are the areas where we are exploring using AI, not creating the core work of our business, creating podcasts. And I just need to say that out loud as often as I possibly can. We are not churning out more podcasts because we have AI. We
Right.
are augmenting our existing podcasts that we create with tools like AI to help other people find them.
Yeah, it is a tool in the work that we do to further all of the elements that we need in order to market our podcast properly. The first step usually is our transcripting tools. Transcripts are an incredibly important element of podcasts because there are plenty of listeners out there who can't actually listen. And so having the ability to make a podcast readable is incredibly helpful for a lot of people. Transcripting is still kind of in that stage with AI where it's not perfect. It doesn't always get all the words right. And so in general, for official transcripts that are getting released with episodes, we still usually use a human to actually do the transcribing. But AI is getting better and better with that. And as a starting place for our next steps, doing an auto AI transcript is a good first step.
It is, and I would say, the leaps that AI needs to make to be able to make a great transcript are, sure, the words. It needs to be able to get all the words right. I would say it's getting a lot of words right, and it is impressive looking at some of these transcriptions that we get out of our longer episodes. The thing that it struggles with is getting names, like being able to assign a voice a name so that as you're reading the transcript, you can actually see who's saying what. Right now, it's incredibly useful to run a transcript so that you can use it as grist for the mill, right? For source material for other steps. But for most of any of the shows that we produce and publish podcasts with transcripts, we use a human transcriber right now to do that. This is an area where I am bittersweet because I know that this is an area where jobs will change as a result of AI. There are people who make their living doing fantastic transcripts, and when you compare what AI is able to do to a human transcript, that gap is closing pretty rapidly. It is not closed yet, for sure, but it is closing. So that is the humble reality.
Right.
But we take those transcripts and we move the tool we use. Should we talk about the specific tool we use for that as we're talking about these things, or do you want to just talk about the functions first?
I mean, I probably is a fine idea to talk about some of these tools that we use.
Okay.
As we're going through each step.
So the tool we use on our desktops, we're a Mac shop, and so we use the tool Whisper AI. Whisper is Mac Whisper is the tool that we use on our computers, and it's built on top of OpenAI's Whisper AI model. And there are a lot of apps that plug into the Whisper AI model on Mac and Windows, and you can certainly find one that works on your system. We have really come to love what Mac Whisper is doing, and that's the tool we stick with for our current workflow. From there,
and what's nice about it is it does have a free version as well as pro versions.
Yes.
So that's very handy. From there, we take that transcript, and now what we generally use the transcripts for is to create the show notes. We can write the show notes. We write plenty of show notes ourselves. But what's nice about this tool is for shows where we're not necessarily editing it or where it's just easier for the purposes of the show is when we have a template, we can plug it in to AI and say, I'd like the show notes to look like this. And it reads the transcript and it actually creates the show notes for us. And the different AI tools are incredibly helpful for this purpose because we can give it some very specific instructions, like I want the introduction to look like this. I want to include quotes. I want to include bullet points. And you can lay all of that out and it can kind of craft it for you.
I did a podcast with a wonderful corporate attorney, Bryn Goodman. She's at a law firm in New York. And we were talking specifically about AI in the workplace and AI in the law. And she was so exuberant about using AI tools smartly and not hiding from them and not letting ideology get in the way of exploring what they can do while so many of these things are being litigated, right? But one of the things that she really leaned in hard on is just making sure that we all understand what training means, because that word is used it's sort of weaponized in the context of AI, like training data. It takes, like we were talking about J.K. Rowling, it takes all these books from everywhere and it uses them as training data. What we're doing when we're building our show notes is we're training an AI model on our own show, right? Our own material. So we can then effectively, we can ask it to write these show notes. And Andy diligently built these text expander snippets that allow us to create show notes based on that are consistently formatted based on our transcripts. But it goes on from there. We can interview our show notes about topics that we talked about, right? We can interview our show notes about specific guests, and it just allows us to focus on the material that we're creating, not the world at large sort of poisoning the well, so to speak. And that has become a really interesting tool for us, being able to essentially interview our past shows quickly and easily and figure out what we said. It works, I think, so much better and more intuitively to have a conversation with our show than to just use search for keywords, which tends to be a little bit scattershot.
And, there are cons with using AI in this way, like something that's important to be careful with is, Pete was talking about how transcripts are still working at getting names right. Well, you plug a transcript with incorrectly spelled names in there, the show notes are likely going to come out with incorrectly spelled names. So it is always a starting place. I always look at the show notes as a great starting place, and then they need proofing. I just want to check all of those sorts of things to make sure that the names are correct. Any other information is coming through properly. And so that is still a key element, but it's getting you that much farther. And that's really what the tool helps with.
Right. We should say that again and loud. At no point do we consider a show note, any particular show notes finished until we fact checked it against our own transcript, against, we just make sure that it's right. Like we really want to make sure that it's right. And if it's wrong, we change it. Like this is not a one step and then it's finished kind of endeavor. It's also, this goes back to this conversation with Bryn. She's an attorney. She uses this stuff to help her create briefs. She knows the issues and challenges that come with being an attorney and using these kinds of tools. She doesn't use it to fact check, or to come up with case law like that. That's settled. We don't use it for those kinds of things.
The other thing that is really helpful with using the show notes in this way is there's specific verbiage that I like to use when I'm asking it to write show notes. And, I always mention spelling check, grammar check, and SEO, search engine optimization. What are the keywords that are repeated over and over in the episode that I want to make sure are repeated in the show notes? And so I always ask it to also check for SEO to make sure that it is putting those words into them. So again, as it goes to the website, and searchability and marketability with these sorts of things, these are all important elements, and getting it to improve the SEO in whatever way is possible is another incredibly helpful tool.
Like, for example, right now, I'm saying the words, Andy is a hunky, hunky boy. And the idea behind that is to train our show and our website by way of those words in our transcript to believe going forward that Andy is a hunky, hunky boy. All I could do is pray that that will show up in future episodes.
It doesn't take much for it to believe that, though. It's just so true.
We use a tool on the back end of our website called Yoast, and Yoast helps do a lot of things on our WordPress site. And one of the things that it is introducing is AI. And you know, if you run a website, you know that, and you've used Yoast, you know that it can help you, do custom, excerpt text, custom titles, custom slugs, URLs, all those kinds of things. That is now integrated AI. So if you have a focused keyword and you're using it right in your SEO, created show notes and text, you can ask Yoast to AI generate the most appropriate and functional slugs for your show and excerpts for SEO. And I think we're still in the stage of your mileage may vary. We're testing it. It's very new for us, and sometimes it's bonkers. Sometimes it doesn't work. It gives you, whenever you click the button, it gives you 5 choices of what should be, what I would expect to be, highly functional SEO terms that'll support our slugs and excerpts. And sometimes it's not functional. It's too long, it's too whatever. But sometimes it's a great starting place. It's great for brainstorming, it's great for editing. And so we're trying it. We're testing. And I don't think we have what I would call settled science on running a podcast website through Yoast and using AI. It still very much requires human eyes, human touch, human fingers on keyboards.
There are a lot of elements within Yoast that definitely require some time spent to just kind of play around with language, and even taking the show notes and doing continued revisions just to make sure, well, you're not quite there as far as using your keyword as much as possible, or it's too focused in one area, all that sort of stuff. So Yoast is a great tool, but also, it's getting there. It still requires some human touch.
We skipped, I think, our favorite tool right now, which is Poe.
Yes, we did skip Poe. Poe is an amalgam of a number of different AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude, which is a great one that we use quite a bit. And you can even get mid-journey prompts for show art built through there. It's kind of a collection of all of these, and you start learning which ones are better for show notes, which ones are better for research, etc. And I find Poe just a daily tool that I am using across the board on just such a variety of our shows.
They include all of the bots from the major tech companies. So obviously, Andy mentioned OpenAI's ChatGPT through ChatGPT 4, the ChatGPT 4 variant models, Claude 2, Claude 2 100K. All of those give you more sort of longer prompts that you can put in there, up to 75,000 words in some cases. The Llama, Facebook's Llama bot is in there. Google's Gemini Pro are in there. So there are a ton of bots. I mean, dozens and dozens. And there's an entire ecosystem of people who create their own bots based on other bots that are specifically trained to do single functions. Like, you want to play a zombie survival game right in Poe, there is a bot that is trained to be a zombie survival game, and you are the one trying to survive. There is a bot that is trained on all of the dungeon master guides for D&D, and you can use it to help you remember what is the range for my longbow, and all of those kinds of tools and tips, and helps you sort of use it as a resource for being a DM. All kinds of different bots, and that's one of the reasons we love Poe. Poe, at its very best, is when you throw a few bucks at it to actually get access to these things, be able to have a conversation with it. This is as opposed to using the individual tools like Claude AI and ChatGPT on their sites. You can pay for those too, but one of the things we like about Poe is that it gives you access to all of them that you want to experiment with and see which ones work best for you.
Yeah, and I had mentioned Midjourney in there as a source. There's a bot in there that helps you write better prompts for Midjourney art, and it's a great tool for us to try to come up with when we're coming up with individual show art for some of our shows, and using that to kind of tap into something that feels appropriate to the episode. And so that's another one that's really handy.
I would say in terms of creating graphics, we do use Midjourney. I think Midjourney versus DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and all of the differences. We landed on Midjourney because it's a familiar interface, right? In Discord, we do a lot of our work in Discord, and it just seems to come up with the closest to what my brain is imagining when it's thinking about a piece of background art for a show. We also use the Adobe suite, and the Adobe suite of AI products is incredible. It is absolutely incredible. This is I know they have tools built into some of their free apps, but once you get into Photoshop and Illustrator, being able to do straight up image creation, layered image creation, background replacement, filling in of empty space. Like there's just some crazy stuff you can do in there. The thing I like about Illustrator is when we're building merch and we need something that we've really thought about that we want to use and create. Adobe's is, to me, it makes me feel more comfortable because their training set is built on legally acquired assets. So it's not like I'm creating an image that is based on something that was acquired illicitly or acquired without permission. And there is still some serious question about a lot of these models. I think the fact that Adobe is at least making the effort right now to say to me as a customer, if you are paying, we're going to do our very best to make sure that everything you're creating is in the chain has been legally acquired and permitted. And so this is one of the areas that I think is really, really gray right now. And so we're trying to use the tools that are appropriate for that.
Very important to mention. A new tool that we've been integrating into our shows is an exciting one that is last on our list. It's called Twinbox, and what this is a tool that absorbs all of your different information from your podcast, basically turns it into a question box that's on your website. It lives right there on the page, and anyone who's a listener can come in and just ask questions of your little AI twin, and it uses all of the information that it's pulled from all the podcasts, and it can come up with answers based on all of the stuff that you've talked about on your show. And then it also can reference those particular episodes for more information. And as just a great way to take what you've already put out there and turn it into a question bot, this is a perfect example of the sort of AI tool that we're very excited about.
As we're recording this, we have it up and running on howtosplitatoaster.com. And you'll see this is a divorce podcast about saving your relationship. So even if you're not divorced or planning a divorce, or if you're just thinking about a divorce, I don't really care. The point is, if you go to that website, at the bottom there is a box that says Ask Seth and Pete. And if you click in that box, you'll see our digital twin at work. And you can type in any question you want about divorce. We've got 100 and I don't know how many, 50 episodes in there or something like that. And it has taken all of the episodes and created this AI twin, and you can ask it questions about divorce right now. The attorney, Seth Nelson, is the host of that show. He is based in Florida, so a lot of these questions will end with check your local jurisdiction, because if you're not in Florida, this law probably won't apply. But if you want advice on just general, working through divorce, you can test out the digital twin at howtosplitatoaster.com right now. And this is coming to more and more of our shows imminently, even by the time this episode is released. So we love the team over at twinbox.ai. They've been really fun to help beta test this tool, and it's been a neat opportunity for us to see what the technology can do.
What other AI tools are we currently using that are worth bringing up for people? I mean, I know a lot of the general tools that we use have started integrating their own AI
Yeah.
into them. Like all of our show, everything we do lives in Coda, which is a powerful web-based tool that is, document database spreadsheet, kind of everything built into one that's all shareable. They're integrating AI into the Coda
Yeah.
platform.
And it's really fun because it will help you build calculations in database tables, which is just wonderful. Like really neat to be able to see how our show database can get how we can cross-reference, information on across hundreds, thousands of podcast episodes, and create new ideas out of just integrating AI into these databases. I think it's really, really fun. Personally, I use a tool called Raycast. Raycast it's a Spotlight replacement on the Mac, and Raycast just released AI a few months ago. And if I hit Command Space on my Mac and open a Raycast launcher and hit Tab, it goes into the AI, which is backed by ChatGPT 4. So with just a quick keystroke, I can type a quick question or a quick request, and it will give me the answer right there. And then I can open up a full window. I'm really just playing with it right now. Like it hasn't really seeped into my workflow yet completely, but I just love that it's there and it's in the right place because it's always just a few keystrokes away. So that's one that I'm really excited about. And the other one that we have access to, we use Spark email as our email client, and they have integrated AI. And you can have it do things like respond to write replies to emails and email follow-ups and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I have used it exactly really 0 times. Have you ever like played with it in your email?
I only have played with just some of the preformed responses and things like
Yeah.
that. Like that's generally all I've used. I have very cursory exploration with that.
That is one of the hardest habits that I have to change. It's just that I've gotten myself pretty tuned to email and writing quick emails, and having like just changing the behavior has been really hard. Like it's just hard for me to wrap my head around doing something different. But the latest update to Spark that just came out is it actually says, hey, learn my style. I want you to write like me. So now you can say, hey, Spark, go look at all my sent mail and create essentially a bot voice for me so that when you reply to my email, it is in my tone. I don't love the idea of just saying, go read all my email and then be me. I don't love that. I haven't turned that on.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
struggle with getting over that particular hump. So
Well, I think that's the trick with some of these AI tools is, again, they're tools, but you have to find a level of comfort and ease with them in order to feel like you're using them effectively. And I think that's maybe one for both of us where it's like that might be pushing a little past the point where I'm comfortable as well. Like I enjoy the idea of helping formulate stuff, but I also want to look at it before anything goes out. Like I don't like that idea.
well, and when you look at it, everything that we've talked about here, like we were talking about when we started, everything that we've talked about here is solving is letting us do new things around our core product, but it is supporting the delivery of our core product, right? And I think when we talk about email, those kinds of productivity tools are things that I also kind of like. Like I like, you know, I don't love email. Let's be honest, I don't love email, but I like the fact that I have complete sort of control over the process, over my productivity process, and that hasn't solved a problem I was trying to solve. Write email for me.
Yeah.
I was not looking for a solution to that. Like everything else, I've been
Right.
looking for a solution for a small business to do at scale that we can afford, and that is a real consideration for all the tools that we're using. And so far, so good.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's an exciting world. We've already said it is evolving constantly. Like things change so fast in the world of AI. But more and more new and exciting tools are being developed and put into place. Pete mentioned Twinbox. This is a brand new one that we were beta testing with them. It's like more new and exciting tools are right around the corner. We just don't know what they are yet. It's a fun place to be playing in. And it's an important one to be exploring and just having an understanding of how can this help me as a tool where it's, my robot overlords are working with me, not against me.
Right. That's right. Well, this has been fun. I like this conversation. I'm sure this will be dated in about 6 weeks, so we're going to probably have to do it again. But in terms of walking through our workflow, in terms of how we create the assets that go alongside the podcast that we do, this is becoming, I think, pretty standard across all of our shows, and we're excited to continue to evolve and explore what actually allows us to do the work we need to do as a very small team. So thanks for hanging out, everybody, on the podcast from True Story FM. We appreciate you hanging out with us. We appreciate your time and attention. And if you like talking about podcasting, spread the word. We'd appreciate it if you share the podcast and drop us a review in Apple Podcasts and wherever reviews are accepted. I don't know. There's thumbs ups, there's stars, there's comments. Let us know what you're thinking about. And we appreciate you so much. So we'll be back maybe next week even.
Who knows? This whole episode might have to be recorded depending on if AI's changed everything.
The AI will tell us if we need to record an episode next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.